Steph Curry is out indefinitely. What does it mean for the Phoenix Suns? Could they have to play the Warriors in the second round? We'll talk about that and more on today's episode of Locked On Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a contributor at Suns.com, as well as Dime Magazine, and a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 5 seasons. Thanks for making Locked On Suns your first listen today and every day. You can find us on YouTube as well as every single podcast platform. We are everywhere, and we are free. The best way to keep us that way is to listen and subscribe like you are already doing. Just scroll down a little bit if you have not done that second part yet. Hit that subscribe button. Do us a big favor. Support the show and keep coming back. We are here every day. But today, closing out the week as usual, Aaron Edwards is here from All Caps NBA to talk Suns, talk blowouts. But we're talking as these first round of March Madness games are going on. Are you a hoops guy when it comes to the NCAA? Are you just March Madness? Are you betting like crazy right now? What's your involvement here?
This is like the first year where I have zero clue who these teenagers are. Like, I haven't really watched a full game all season. So I have no idea. Like, I saw that Arizona was number 1. I usually know stuff like that. And I just feel so out of the loop this year that I didn't even make a bracket. It's like the first year I didn't make one.
Do you think it's because the Suns are good and we just don't have to care about the draft? Because I think that's a lot of it for me. Like, I just would kind of have an ear to it because I'm like, okay, I got to know at least a little bit about who these guys are going to be when the Suns have to pick in the top 5. But now I'm like, they don't even have a pick. Like, I'll figure it out in May and June. I don't care at all. And I look up and I'm like Providence is playing right now. I'm like, I don't know anything. I don't know their head coach. I don't know one player. I don't know any moment of their season. I know nothing.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Like, I don't really care about who's probably going to be a Houston Rocket or Sacramento King in a couple months. Like, it's just something in my head that just knows that I won't see whoever this top player is anyway, because they're going to be on some really bad teams. So and it won't be mine. So I just really had no really inclination to watch any of these guys, even though I'm sure there's some really good kids. But the Suns aren't going to have to deal with any of these kids for a while. So I just never really thought to pay attention to it.
It is funny how things quickly change, but we'll start with the Steph Curry news. That's really the NBA news of the day, I feel like, aside from whatever Patrick Beverley was doing with the Lakers. But Steph goes down with Marcus Smart diving for a loose ball after, I believe, Jaylen Brown coughed the ball up, and then both teams are trying to get it. Marcus dives. Steph was about to grab it along the baseline, sideline, and then crumples his ankle a little bit underneath of Marcus Smart's body. Steve Kerr gets mad, and it's obviously some drama online because of Steph's history with that type of stuff. But from a Suns perspective, Aaron, the Warriors right now, with Steph, he's out indefinitely, which could mean a week, it could mean a month. It's hard to tell. The Warriors are 3.5 games up on the Jazz, and the Mavs are actually tied with the Jazz at the 4-5 right now. So it's not a lot of time. It's probably less likely that the Warriors would lose that 3 seed unless they just really, really struggle. But they do have Draymond back. Either way, if that were to happen, the Suns would be looking at a potential second-round matchup with the Warriors instead of a Western Conference Finals, because that 1-4 matchup would line up for it to be Phoenix Golden State. Are you worried about that result? Do you feel like we're going to see Suns Warriors anyway? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like we were probably going to see them later anyway. I think that we've seen them without Steph, and they're pretty bad. So, maybe the Jazz might catch them. It just depends. But I could see it happening. They were that bad without Draymond. And, yeah, they needed defense, but the scoring was never an issue for them. When he's not on the floor, it's a lot like when our second unit. When the ball can't move and people can't score, it gets pretty ugly, especially when you don't have one of the greatest point guards of all time and Clay still figuring stuff out. And Jordan Poole, he's playing pretty well now, and he's going to have to play well in the playoffs. So I think that might help him from the most part, is Jordan Poole getting more minutes and being on the floor with the starters. But I really just I could see them getting caught by the Jazz because they really do have rough basketball with that stuff.
Yeah, it's not been pretty. Poole seems to just be so up and down since the role change where he's not in the starting lineup anymore. And so you would have maybe thought okay, he could really step up. I don't really know if he's obviously not going to be able to do what Steph does. I don't really know if he's a lead offensive engine for you at this point. Clay doesn't seem like he's going to be that. So they're definitely going to struggle to score. I don't know what their schedule necessarily looks like. We won't get too into the weeds on it, but Dallas is 8-2 in their last 10 games. They've won 3 straight. They've had these back-to-back game-winning, buzzer-beating shots from Spencer Dinwiddie. They seem to be, I don't know, figuring something out, coming together with that small ball stuff, with Luka just really doing everything for them. They would scare me in the playoffs as well. I mean, even aside from when the Warriors matchup happens, the Mavs seem like they're at least just coming up with an identity right now. I don't know if the Jazz really scare me that much more than they have. They've kind of just been their usual selves this season. But I guess it's just maybe you could look at it and say the Suns will get to the Warriors before Chris Paul injury stuff starts to become a concern if they get him in the second round. I don't know. I kind of agree with you, though. It's similar to my mindset once the Lakers matchup got locked in last year, where it's whether it's round 1 or round 3, you're going to have to go through the Lakers probably. So get it out of the way. I don't know if it really changes the calculus of will the Suns make the finals or not.
Nah, and I just think as far as the Suns go, we just know who we are, and a lot of teams are figuring themselves out still. Dallas, I think they finally know who they are, and the Warriors are going to have to start pretty much all over with Steph on the floor. Chris Paul, I really think that if he really needed to, I think he would come back today. And I really think it's just more of a rest, playoff kind of thing and not wanting to aggravate it. But I feel knowing him that this is just one of those Monty and James Jones saying, we don't need you. We have the first locked. And we kind of need Cam to get warmed up and figured out back in the scheme of things, and just figuring out if Aaron Holiday is going to get minutes on the floor. I really think the Suns are just using this as a figuring out the guard situation for the playoffs. And it's mostly just figuring out lineups and rotations and stuff like that. It's not really a needing Chris Paul kind of thing.
I think the most interesting aspect of this Curry injury, because it sounds so the indefinite thing, Woj was able to follow up and kind of say they're expecting him to be back for the playoffs. So that's a while, that's, basically 3 weeks at least. It's not so much falling to 4 that I think would really be that big of an issue, because you're basically looking at, instead of playing the Nuggets in the first round, they'd be playing either Utah or Dallas if they were to fall. I think those matchups, they'd probably be favored against any of those 3 teams. The bigger thing to me might actually be not being able to get back to 2, because I think you would have been saying if you're a Warriors fan, once they get Draymond back, they could get back to 2, because they're still only a game behind Memphis, who hasn't been quite as scorching as they had been. And I think that matters, because right now, if you look in the box or the standings, Golden State's 18-15 on the road. They've really been bipolar in terms of home road. They're 29-8 at home, which is actually the same as the Suns' home record, but they're only 18-15 on the road. So if they have to go on the road against Memphis, even if they stay at 3, or let's say they were to fall to 5 and they're going to Dallas or Utah, which both pretty good crowds in the first round, or second round, I guess, if it was the 2-3, that starts to be a little bit more of a problem. And I don't know if it, for such an experienced team, they've obviously won on the road before, but they're not as great of a team as they were in those years. And I feel that actually could be a factor if they're having to play a lot on the road in the playoffs. That could be an actual problem for them.
Yeah, I think you don't want to be figuring out your team at the same time as getting healthy and being on the road at the same time at crazy crowds. I just think the Steph injury is just the worst time it could be. And it's just really bad for them having to figure out how to keep the 3 seed with their starting Hall of Fame point guard out and having to figure out all of this before the playoffs start, it just seems like a really rough situation. And Draymond, it still has to get back in shape and all of that. So I just think it's going to be a rough stretch in figuring out who they're going to be with Steph out.
Another season where injuries are really deciding what's going to happen in the West, which kind of sucks. I don't know, like, even if it was worse for the Suns, I tend to just want every team to have their full guys and be like at their best. I don't know. I prefer it in terms of knowing kind of the best team actually won and getting the best games in the postseason. But it seems like that's maybe never going to happen again in the NBA with how much guys rest. I have no idea. The Suns are looking good, but anyone else except for Memphis, it feels like there's a ton of injury stuff and question marks. But we will get to the Suns and where they have stepped up. I think Aaron and I are in full agreement that they are much better positioned this part of this season than they were even heading into the playoffs last year when they made the NBA Finals. We'll get to that in a second. But of course, as we were just talking about, it's that time of year again. College basketball's tournaments are finally upon us. So if you need odds, contests, and player props, betonline.net is your number one source for betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for scores, podcasts, as well as news this season to inform everything you have going on in your wallet this March. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all sports wagering info, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Make it really feel like you're sitting at Westgate having a few drinks and enjoying the basketball if you're not able to get out there and actually do it. Head to the website today or download their mobile app to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I was polling you, Aaron, before we actually hit record to see how you were feeling about just all the different ways that this team seems to have improved. And I kind of, I figured you would agree, but you were like, yes, let's definitely talk about that. And so I'm curious, what has stood out to you the most? Because, we can run it down. The Suns are 8-4 since the break without Chris Paul. I think 6 out of their 8 wins have been double digits. They're the number one defense in the NBA since the All-Star break. Like, if you had said Chris Paul was healthy, I think those numbers might have actually sounded pretty similar, and they've been doing it without him. So what has stood out to you?
I think it's just like the being able to plug anybody into the system and how successful they can be. Cam Payne was coming off of an injury, and he's pretty much slowed his pace down, and he's playing at like a Chris Paul pace, trying to get DA his touches, and like they can alternate between point, book, and Cam Payne like pretty much like fluidly. And our 3-point shooting without Cam Johnson out is still like we're kind of keeping it together, and it hasn't like fell apart as much as I thought it would, because we have no problem scoring still. I mean, our rotations and our bench is a little weird, and Booker has to play a lot more minutes now. But I think like it was just how we could just plug these guys in. And Torrey Craig, he got his shot back the last 2 games, which has been nice because he did start off a little bit slow. But I just think like we can kind of throw a lot of dudes in these lineups, and Biyombo can come in whenever he's needed if JaVale McGee gets in foul trouble or just for matchup issues. Like, he guards Giannis really well. And I just think like in a series like that, McGee might not play as much as we probably would have needed him last year even, but Biyombo is just better like matchup wise. I just think we just have everybody for different matchups, even without 2 premier players. And it's just like a really good thing to find out now.
Yeah. I think I echo you on all of that. Obviously, everybody's been able to step up. You have Torrey Craig. I think there was some number where it was like, it's very much cherry picking, but one of those things where it's like he's the 3rd player in the last 10 years to basically have the stat line that he did against the Rockets, not missing a single shot, having a 2010 game and everything else. But I've seen this put out there a few times, and it's not exactly like the most deep way to put it, but here's who played in Game 6 of the finals last year. So obviously the starters, everybody knows. I'm not going to read the names. Cam Johnson played 16 minutes. That'll be more this time around, I think. Frank Kaminsky, 11. Cameron Payne, 10. Torrey Craig, 1. So you just think that was who Monty had to turn to. He basically went to like a 6-man rotation, 6.5-man rotation.
We had no center.
No center, happens in the finals. And like Frank wasn't even playing prior to that, as we all remember. So even him, it's kind of like not super representative of what happened. This year, he will have JaVale McGee, Cameron Johnson still, Aaron Holiday, a better version of Campaign. He will have Bismack Biyombo, who you mentioned. Like, I don't think enough has been made of that part. And like maybe you're of the opinion that only the guys in that top 6 even matter. And I might agree with you. But I think what's exciting to me is like if you think most times it's going to be more like 8 players, it can be any 8. Like aside from that starting lineup, you could imagine like any of those 3 bench guys being the ones to step up. And it might be Aaron Holiday having like 5 steals in a big game. It might be that, Cameron Payne goes for 20 or 30 like we've seen him do. It might be that Biyombo has one of those games like that Toronto game. I think he had like 4 points and 2 rebounds, and you could have convinced me he deserved like a game ball for that performance with what he was able to do just purely out of energy. Like, I think you're completely right. It can be anybody, and you're not having to turn to Etuan Moore or Frank Kaminsky or Langston Galloway when the top guys don't have it. Like, I think it's pretty incredible. And I think it's kind of quietly happened because James Jones didn't make a big move per se, but there's a ton of play. I didn't even say Torrey Craig's name in there. Like, it's pretty crazy. It's cool to see. And they're so much deeper and more versatile than they were last year.
Yeah. I just think like just versatility wise, I think there might be a series where Biyombo gets 10 minutes and JaVale gets like 2 DMPs or the other way around. And we won't have a single problem with it because matchup wise, like those two are so interchangeable that we won't mind if JaVale gets a DMP or 2 or 3 if Biyombo's getting minutes, because those two do 2 different things and we could kind of utilize those things for different series if we have to. And I think the fans understand what those 2 bring, and Monty knows what those 2 bring. And if we need one without the other for a series, we probably wouldn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, and it's a subtle thing too, I think, but within that, you also have, I think, Monty getting more comfortable with different types of lineups. Like I was talking a lot about that when they first got Torrey Craig, and people might remember that one Spurs game where Ish Wainwright closed at center. There was a lot of like small ball creativity and whatnot with Monty for a while there. He hasn't gone to it quite as much lately because the bigs are all back and healthy, but I think he's more comfortable going small if he needs to, but he's also getting more comfortable going big. Like, I don't know if many people necessarily noticed it yesterday, but he had Biyombo out there at the 4 for basically no reason yesterday against the Rockets. Like, I think he was like, yeah, Crowder's out. I already have McHale playing like 85% of the total minutes in this game. Hell, like, whatever, we're going to win by 20 anyway. Let me just throw Biyombo out there to give other guys a rest. And, like, it works. Like, I think the team just knows itself so much that he's not worried about that. And then we haven't even seen, like, the 3 guard stuff that we already knew was going to be a big weapon because it was in last year's playoffs. And now there's another couple of guys to fit into that. So you could go Paul Booker Payne, Paul Booker Holiday, Paul Booker Shamet. We haven't even seen a lot of that because of the way that the injuries have lined up this year. And then Holiday he's not really ever played with Chris Paul. So there's so many things I think we actually haven't even seen yet on top of all the stuff that we're already getting excited about.
Yeah, you can tell, like, at first when Aaron Holiday first got here, he was trying Shamet or he was trying Payne and Holiday lineups, but Chris Paul got hurt. But I think at some point, like, he's going to want a lot of ball handlers on the floor and guys that can get their own shot. And I just think we're going to see Book, Paul, Campaign, or Book, Paul, Holiday with Cam Johnson to have a shooter out there. I think he could do so many things with these lineups with guys that can handle the ball and pretty much like play make, that it's going to be like a lot more. I thought he would want to do it before the end of the season, but I think he's going to try a lot during the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think ideally that first round matchup is not something where you're having to play all your chess pieces right away and you can kind of like tinker more so and still win the series. That would be ideal. Maybe not playing the Clippers, preferably, I guess. But yeah, all that stuff has been exciting. I kind of want to dig in a little bit more to specific players as well here because, I mean, frankly, it sounds kind of ridiculous, but I think like everybody's at least had a moment while Paul has been out. So we'll do that. We'll start with Booker, though, because I've been just blowing about him, and I kind of want to hear your thoughts there as well, Aaron. But First, guys, our next partner has a product that I've been using literally every day since they sent us samples, and that is AG1 from Athletic Greens. And look, of course, I wanted to try it out because I wanted to talk to you guys about it, but I've actually gotten hooked. It's easy, first of all. It's just one scoop in water. It's not anything more complicated than that. You don't have to remind yourself. There's not some sort of set time you need to take it or pill or anything like that. You just mix it in. It's kind of tastes, it's a little sweet. It's a little citrusy. And best of all, it's really worked. With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, nervous system, immune system, as well as energy recovery and focus. Since I've been taking AG1, I definitely notice that my stomach does not feel as upset. I don't always take care of it. I have way too much coffee. You know how it can go, but it definitely helps. And again, I feel like I haven't had the normal allergy stuff that I usually will deal with, where it's like, yeah, the allergies are there, and then my body just freaks out and it sucks for 2 weeks. I've kind of been able to handle it, which has been awesome as well as the summer weather starts to kick in here. So it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially as we make our way through allergy season. And we're still in flu and cold season, if you can believe it as well. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. No need for a million different pills or supplements just to keep your health right. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NBA network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NBA network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Today's show also brought to you by Built Bar, which of course is a fabulous partner for our last sponsor there, and can be a key to unlocking your daily health as well. If you're like me, you try to get to the gym, you try to keep in shape, but sometimes you're just exhausted, and Built Bar can be part of the solution there because they are not bogged down with sugar, which helps you avoid that crash. But most importantly, they're packed with protein. Each and every Built Bar is going to have 15 to 20 grams of protein and never more than 5 grams of sugar. And that really is what I love about them. But they also taste delicious, covered in 100% chocolate, a flavor for everybody, whether you like the more fruit side, strawberry, orange, raspberry, or you're more in the rich chocolate camp like double chocolate, mint brownie, salted caramel. There is something for everybody. Built Bar worries about taste first, then they figure out how to make it healthy, and they pull it off every single time. So go to Built.com, guys. Use the promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your next order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, Aaron. So as I was saying there before the break, Devin Booker, he's basically been scoring a point per minute in these past 3 wins, blowout wins, because he hasn't had to play a ton, and he's been efficient as hell. We can go through all NBA if you're up for that game, but I personally just feel like, this is clearly the best season of his career, right? And this stretch has just been kind of a reminder of that, proof of that. He's on another level right now.
Yeah, it's you can just tell everything's slowed down so much for him. He trusts DA more. He just trusts everybody so much more that you can just tell that when he needs to take over. Like yesterday, you can tell that Kevin Porter Jr. said something, and Book was like, let's take it back 3 years. Let's turn this on for a little bit. And he just turns into the old Book whenever he needs to. And it's weird when you get to a place and he's 25, a guy that knows that he can turn the switch on whenever he wants to, but he's brought into this team and he knows exactly what this team needs without Chris Paul on the floor. And he knows that he can turn on the Book stuff whenever he needs to. And it's just really cool to see that he has full control of his powers right now. And he could probably get even better. He's shooting 46 from 3 in the last 4 or 5 games. I just think Book is at his best right now. And it's really glad to finally see it here.
Yeah, since the All-Star break, of course, he did have those 4 games that he missed with COVID, but he's played 8 games, of course, all without Chris Paul. He's 52, 42, 90 since the break. He is also averaging 28 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, and 8 assists per game. And yeah, I just don't really see how this isn't the best stretch. And I've even been extending it out further to really since January 1st. If you go through, like, he was at 28.2 points per game in January on 43% shooting from the field, which wasn't quite as efficient. But then he was 27.4 points per game in February on 47% shooting. And then now in March, he's just been, as you said, on another level. He's 55, 44, 91. 28 points per game. Not to just throw numbers at everybody. We all know watching this guy, it's crazy. Like, to me, like this, and the reason I bring it up now too, because if we're talking about the postseason and like why the Suns are better equipped, I think, than they have been, which has been something we've kind of been checking in on all year. I always felt like it came back to, is Book going to be better? Because I think you need star players who can score and create to win in the playoffs. And the Suns learned that the ugly way, giving up a 50-piece to Giannis in Game 6, right? When you have a guy who can do that, you're going to win finals games. And the Suns needed their version of that to be at a higher level. Chris Paul has been as good, if not maybe a little bit better this year, and Book has taken his game to another level. The reason that I think that's important is obvious, but it's the combination of things that I think has been the cool part for those of us who have kind of gotten to see it over time. It's like he's combining that shot making with, like you said, the patience. Like, he just feels like he kind of is almost like a computer at this point, where he's like, all right, here's what's going to happen. Here's where the shot might be. Here's where my teammates are going to be. He's gotten so good at those like cross court passes when he always used to turn it over. He's gotten so much better at lobs, which he kind of didn't struggle with, but never really looked for quite as much. It doesn't feel like, aside from like there's the guys who can still get up in his face a little bit and just force him off balance, like Dylan Brooks or Lou Dort or some of those players who we've seen, Drew Holiday. But it doesn't feel like there's anything that he like can't do or anything that phases him right now. And that's just awesome to watch.
Yeah, like I think he was just living in the mid-range yesterday and barely got to get to the rim, but he's just efficient right now. He knows his spot. He knows how to get there. He knows where everybody else is, and he knows like when Mikal Bridges needs his touches, when DA needs his touches, and he just like knows the offense like so well now that you can just tell he's in complete control. And during the playoffs, he won't have to be with Chris Paul running the show. But we know that Monty is probably thinking, maybe when I sit Chris and bring Campaign in, Chris Paul can do an extra 5 or 6 minutes, or Booker can do an extra 5 or 6 minutes at point, and we won't have a problem with that. And I just think like knowing that Book is seeing the floor like this right now, it's just going to help a lot more for Monty in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's kind of been a combination, I feel like, of that. The way that he was able to play with Rubio that first year with Monty, he's playmaking a lot, but then adding in like the shot making and efficiency that he's developed with Chris. And I mean, it does make me kind of excited a little bit, although of course we'll all be disappointed whenever Chris's time here comes to an end. But like, if this is kind of already what he's doing and he doesn't even have a ton of reps at it, like whatever it's going to look like, whether it's Payne who comes in as the next starter or whatever it is, like, man, he's going to be able to take his game to another level. It's just a matter of when. Who else has impressed you though? Like if we just want to highlight one more guy here specifically that's really taken their game up another level, who you've seen new stuff from, who has impressed you specifically at a player level?
It's really been Campaign. Like he used to be a little like sporadic and like manic out there sometimes, but you could just tell like he's slowed it all down. Like his thinking is slowing down, and he'll reset up the pick and roll if he needs to. He's forcing a lot less left-handed drives that like are going nowhere. He'll like just go around the lane and start all over. And he just wasn't doing that before. He's taking every possession seriously, and he's not just giving up like wild possessions like he used to sometimes. And I hate doing the Chris Paul effect thing, but sometimes you just need to run the offense over again. And it didn't work the first time. Just go back and get it to Book. Or he's just like, you can just tell his thinking is a lot slower, and he's just not like kind of manic out there anymore.
Yeah, he has 88 assists to just 21 turnovers in 9 games post All-Star break. So 4-to-1 plus assist to turnover ratio, which is, I mean, it's not even just impressive for the sake of being impressive. But prior to the All-Star break, when you're talking about that he was a little out of control, it was basically 2-1. So he had 71 turnovers pre-All-Star break. He's, I guess like four times fewer games. He played 40 games pre, only 10 games since, but 21 turnovers compared to 71 before is pretty insane. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see if it's something where in those moments when Monty just didn't trust him in the finals last year, that it doesn't go that way. Maybe, he's just kind of flipped a switch from an IQ standpoint, just having enough time out there. I mean, that's the thing I always bring up with Payne is like, we think of him as being, he's older, he's kind of in his prime technically, but he just really hasn't played a lot of NBA basketball still. I mean, you could still say that. Like, he's equivalent really to a guy who's kind of like wrapping up his rookie contract, but he just so happens to be, already at his more advanced kind of age. You're not wrong though about the Chris Paul thing. I mean, Cam said it himself. I think he had 16 assists in that Knicks game a few weeks ago, and afterward, he literally said it's a little bit of C and a little bit of me out there. And I'm like, yeah, that perfectly describes it. Like he has been a sponge. So to see it kind of like actually show up when you're watching him has been really cool. And I hope, like I just listed off those minute totals from game 6 and Payne only played 10.
He had a rough finals.
He had a very rough finals. You want to see that be higher though, right? I mean, that's the goal is you don't have to have everybody playing 40 plus minutes in the finals if you're getting contributions from other guys. So we will see. I will also shout out Mikal and Ayton. I don't want people to feel like we forgot.
I'm so sorry. Ayton he's just efficient now. That turn jumper, hook shot, like he's just not missing it. And I feel like we should mention that he's just kind of unstoppable right now when he gets his touches, and he's just so confident shooting that free throw line jump shot that it's really going to be tough to beat if he's just going to keep making it at that clip, because whenever he touches it, I just expect him to make it. And that little drop step floater that he does, he's just hitting all those shots whenever he gets the opportunity.
Yeah, he's been – again, he's like the number one guy where I don't want to overreact. So I'm just like, yeah, he's getting better. Don't ask me about it. We don't need to talk about it. I'll just knock on some wood and like we'll see what happens. But, this is a pattern for him. I've been talking about that on the show too. Like he did this last year. Like he rounded into form right as the playoffs were coming around. And I don't know if that's just something we should expect from him from now on. And he knows kind of when he needs to turn it on. And that playoff version of him is going to come up again. I don't have any reason to believe that won't happen, but it feels like it could be even a little bit better than it was last year. So that'll do it for us today though, guys. Thanks for listening all week and every single day, making Locked On Suns your first listen. You can follow and you should follow along with everything Aaron is doing over at All Caps NBA. That's on the Take Line YouTube channel. Listen and watch them every single week. And that'll do it. We will be back next week. I think there are some games this weekend. Yes, the Bulls, and then somebody else on Sunday, I think the Kings. So I'll have a recap for that on Monday. But until then, listen to Locked On NBA. Make Locked On NBA your second listen to catch up on everything you might have missed around the NBA on Thursday night.